Good morning from Torino. You may hear it in the background. We're making some coffee because it's been a mighty week so far. The first week of Eurovision 2022 is over. And I'm going to look back on that week. I've joined the rest of the crew of ESC Daily now for the second week, so the party will now really begin. Erik Bolk, Stefan Gorkum. How is the Italian coffee, Steve?
Well, it's Italian, so I think we're going to talk a lot about today about things that Italians can't do, but this is something that they know how to do, is making coffee, so we're enjoying it.
Yeah, we're hoping this podcast will advance without any technical errors, right?
You're standing on my cable, please. Yes, we are.
That's not your cable. Good morning.
Buongiorno a tutti.
I'm back, I'm here.
Buongiorno a tutti. Sono various technical problems, eh?
Glad to get you off your grid a bit. That's not happened a lot in the last couple of years. So tell me, all the people that weren't here, and obviously I haven't been here all week long. In general, Steve, what's your feeling, your comment on the shows, on the songs, on how it's going here?
Well, let me start that by saying something that doesn't have to do with the show, but just to give you an example of how things are organized here. During the first 2 days of rehearsals that I was in the physical press center, RAI changed its policy towards wearing masks, COVID masks, 7 times in those 2 days. So we had to wear it, then we didn't have to wear it, then we had to wear it, but we could take it off while we ask a question at the press conference, then we should wear it while we're asking a question at the press conference. So I think that's the way this contest is organized, or disorganized, basically. And you can see that in the rehearsals and in the shows as well, because a lot of stuff has gone wrong, both in terms of the sun with the stage, the sun element that doesn't work, sound issues, cables being removed from where they should be. It's been quite messy, yeah.
Sounds very Italian.
Yes, and I hope you're not a spectator in the audience and you had the standing seat. Because
Why?
They decided to have it seated seats, and you have to sit, and you can probably see nothing because of the stage is risen and you hear the waterfall. It's just a last minute decision by RAI as well. So no, it's just messy. And you get the impression that they had a first rehearsal and then do a second, but they forgot all the notes they had from the first rehearsal. Everything was like,
What surprises me about your story, sorry to interrupt, is usually, I've been at Eurovision for 10 years as well, the EBU is always the party that has the biggest influence, and they try to make sure that when it comes to terms of production, that every nation adjusts to what the EBU wants. Do they give more power to RAI this year than they did in previous years to other broadcasters then?
I'm not sure, but the one reason for me to believe that it is actually mostly RAI's fault and not EBU's fault is that sun element, because you can see that they changed their plans. It's not that EBU deliberately chose for a more modest production, or that it's, but they had their plans and they turned out to be too ambitious. It didn't work and they had to change it last minute. And that's something that has to have to do with the organization here, because that's something that they noticed only at the last minute when everybody arrived here in Italy.
But we know from Kiev in 2017 and Baku in 2012 that the EBU was really on top of things to make sure that the ambitions plans were actually they came true.
Yes, and I think those were broadcasters that invited help maybe a little bit more. Because yes, of course, the Azeri broadcaster and the Ukrainian broadcaster are not maybe as well equipped, as well experienced, and as rich, let's face it, as for example SVT when it was in Sweden. But they know that. And I think they invited all the help that they could, and they accepted EBU coming over there because they wanted that show to be as prestigious for their country as possible, and anyone from abroad who could help was welcome. Whereas in Italy, I think maybe there's a little bit more pride into it, and they feel like they want to do it themselves, but they're not managing right now.
We are going to talk about the actual shows and the songs in the upcoming days, of course, when we see the jury shows, when we see all the run-throughs of all the shows. But as of now, the first rehearsal week, of course, you only got to see all rehearsals only once, because the first run-throughs were all blocked for media. Erik, you are from the OGE. How do people in general react to that decision?
Well, the people who are used to have this full coverage of the first round obviously are a little bit angry. And I notice on social media there's less attention for the Eurovision, so I think that's a mistake from EBU. Because you want to create a buzz with the people who would like to see and follow everything. Like those fan press, they report every fart of every delegation. But
That's rich when it's coming from you.
Yes, but it's you notice it that the vibe is just not growing that much as it used to be in the past. So I think they will. I hope they will switch it back to like having this buzz around all the time, and people start to live up to the contest. Now it has to start only 2 days ago. So a bad start it is.
I know from some delegations, one of the reasons I think the EBU made this decision is because a couple of delegations asked for their first rehearsals not to be aired to journalists because it's work in progress. And you have young and inexperienced artists sometimes, and they feel that pressure when immediately everything is written down and, oh, this is not good, this is not good. Can you get it from the point, when you look at the point of view from the EBU, from the broadcasters, from participants, that the EBU made this decision, Steve?
I get that, and I would actually have maybe even supported this decision had they not decided to then only show the rehearsal footage on TikTok. Because Erik is talking about social media, and I think that's the biggest mistake that's being made here. Not so much that media are not allowed to cover those first rehearsals, even though in Rotterdam I think they had the perfect middle ground saying that they're not showing the first run-through, but they are showing the run-throughs after that, which I think was the best solution. But even if they decided to go with the full rehearsal round, not for media, they could have still released decent content themselves and shared that over all social media. And they did neither, because the videos were useless, let's face it, and they were only on TikTok. So I think that's the biggest mistake that they made, especially when it comes to creating a buzz leading up to the Eurovision Song Contest.
And you think, Erik, they what's the reasoning behind that? They don't want the buzz, or is it?
They don't want the euros from the sponsor, I guess. That can be the only reason. Because as a delegate, if I were a delegation, I would want this feedback from the crowd and adjust my act if the feedback is constructive.
Yeah, but to be fair, we've been in the Eurovision community for many years, and how do I say this in a nice way?
We saved Malta from a car crash with a fashion. She was chosen first because we saw it and we said, "Oh, please don't do this." And
But I think you and we at ESC Daily, and there are more websites who do that, give this feedback in a constructive manner. We also see, and especially people who are only on Twitter, that it's not very constructive, to be fair. And I can imagine that some artists, especially younger artists, they read that after their first run through, and it kicks their confidence.
But that hasn't changed this year. That's the thing. Like, if that's what you wanted to achieve, they failed, because this year, if it's even worse. Probably when it comes to social media, it may be even worse than in previous years, or at least it got so rough. The reactions to some of the artists, to Ronella, for example, from Albania, got so rough that the EBU had to release a statement saying, we will not allow this anymore. This is where we draw the line. You cannot write abusive comments directly to artists or to people in the production.
Rightfully so.
Rightfully so. Of course, you cannot do that. They are totally right at that. But I'm reacting to you because if you're saying that closing the first rehearsal round was a way to stop those comments, then clearly it didn't work.
And let's be fair, the critics for Albania came after EBU showed pictures. So who done it?
Anyway, we will talk about this topic possibly more, even though I'm also in the mindset that we've had that rehearsal week is behind us now, and we will focus on the actual shows. What do you think now that this week is behind us, Steve, that the overall production will be like when we've seen that many errors?
That's for me now. The important question is how that will affect the competition as well, because we cannot be certain, which I was in previous years. I was always certain that even when there were some minor errors, some camera angles that needed to be fixed or something, even if it hadn't been done after 2 rehearsal rounds, I still felt like it will get done in the second week for the jury show and for the TV show. Now, are they going to fix all those mistakes for all those 40 countries? I can't be 100% sure. And so, in a way, it makes the second week from a journalistic perspective maybe more interesting, because what you're about to see can go in so many different ways and can actually influence the competition, because if those mistakes are made... I think the last time something like that big happened was 2015 with Nina Sublati and Warrior, when something like really went wrong and it influenced her result, probably. So... It's a bad thing maybe for delegations, but it's interesting for us to follow, because anything can still happen.
Yeah, well, we have had more examples, I think, indeed. Sorry for the Denglish. I think Georgia was a good example. We've had the microphone failure of Estonia in 2017 later on. And in Rotterdam, we even had during a show that one of the cameras broke down and they had to change shots, and especially for I think the Thusis performance was the one that they had. They used that camera a lot, so they had to fix it very quickly.
But that was something the viewer did not notice. And here we get to see a prop on stage, very big. It's not working with the LEDs, and I think a lot of countries suffer from that. Only the countries who brought their own LED screen and big props are not harmed by this fail by RAI.
You have seen all these rehearsals where we get a lot of like that the visual pictures are kind of the same for many nations now, since that doesn't work.
Yes, I think so. And I think that the difference between the situations that you just mentioned and even the situation with Georgia is that this year there will at least be, even if they fix all the failures, there's one thing that they cannot fix anymore that they decided that they'll stick with, which is the sun that won't turn. And that will affect some of the performances. Maybe the viewers won't notice, but at the same time they will, because it will be less visually interesting. It will maybe get a little bit boring or repetitive, and countries like Albania that I already mentioned, or Estonia, that wanted to create this Western vibe and even spoke about it at the press conference, saying that they will have to change their plans now and create the vibe in a different way. Probably it won't be as good as it could have been, but we'll never know, because that performance will never be given.
Tomorrow is the day of the first jury show of the first semi-final. If you all agree, we'll grab another cup of coffee tomorrow, talk about that first semi-final in depth, going through all the countries, and then we'll have a blast.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's a strong semi-final, the first one, definitely compared to the second one. We have 4 countries in there that, according to bookmakers, might be somewhere in the race for victory. So it's a very interesting semi-final, and I'm looking forward to that jury show, definitely.
You, Eric, to close it off for today, you learned some Italian for this Eurovision. Can you tell the people something uplifting in Italian to boost their mindset for this upcoming week?
Ok ragazzi, tutti va bene.
Ciao ciao.